Hi, for this week's video I thought we would do something different. We'll make cards, but what it's going to be is from this Love Blossom workshop that Close to My Heart put out when they put out this exclusive stamp set. But instead of using that stamp set, I'm going to use the scraps that are left over from my Candid Moments workshop and the December stamp of the month, I'll love you, Owl, love you forever, with the owl in it. But as you can see, there's lots of pieces that are left from my workshop. It's the scrapbook workshop that I got in Candid Moments. So all the die cuts are there. But this is the Love Blossom instructions, and you make 12 cards. So you make 4 of 3 different patterns. And there's a lot of stamping involved. And with the first card, anyhow, I did more ink blending as a background and use that Owl Love You Forever stamp. So I kind of wanted to just go over with you. I'm looking at the cardstock selections that they have you cut for this workshop, and I'm trying to look at the different card bases to select like what patterns I'm going to use. So this first paper is it's a dark blue pattern on one side, and then it's like a paprika pattern on the other side, and I'm cutting 4 pieces that are 4.5 by 3. So I cut a 4.5 inch strip, and then I'm cutting 3 3.25 inch, and then I'm going to trim this down to 3 3/4 and cut off 4 1/4 inch strips. So the measurements are up here in the upper right corner of the screen so you can see that. And, or if you want the PDF of this Love Blossoms workshop so that you can see it on your own, just send me an email, or I'll have information. Probably my friend Julie Scott from Craft with Julie, who's a maker with heart, she suggested doing a Google form might be easier for you guys to get those PDFs. So I'll try to figure out a Google form, but the information will be in the description box of how you can get that PDF file. And then the second piece of paper that I'm using, I'm actually doing both the second cardstock and the third cardstock from the workshop, the original workshop. So I need 4 pieces that are 4.25 by 5.5. So what I did is I cut 2 strips that are 4.25 wide and cut those, 5.5 and 5.5. So that gave me the 4 of those. And then I cut it's actually 1.25 inch strip. I think I have the wrong, 1.5, sorry. I cut 2 1.5 inch strips to cut down to 4.25 because you need 2 of those. And then you also need just 1/4 inch strip by 5.5. And again, the measurements are up in the corner. So if I confused you by all the different quarters and 4 in and 1.5, you can look up in the corner for that. And then this last paper is a pattern paper with stripes on one side. I don't remember what's on the other side, but I wanted to look at how it's being used on the cards so that I knew which orientation to have it. So for me, I wanted the stripes to run up and down, so I went ahead and cut those strips that are 4.25 inches wide with the stripes up and down. And again, this is going to use the cardstock number 4 and the cardstock number 5 diagrams off of this PDF file. But again, the dimensions or the pieces that you need are up in the corner here, so you can just follow that along. And I am using half of the zip strip as one of my 1/4 by 5.5 inch strips, just as something different pattern paper. And I don't know if you can see because it's just barely on the screen off to the left. I have my piles for the pieces that go in for card number 1, card number 2, and then card number 3 is at the bottom. So these are the sentiment pieces, and I just in my scraps had a piece of cardstock that was 4 by 12, and it was really supposed to be 4.25 according to the pattern, but I'll end up just trimming down the base when I put the cards together. I'll show you that. That'll be next week because I'm going to do the cutting instructions today, and then I will put together card number 1, and then for next week I will go through and walk us through doing cards 3 or number 2 and number 3. So we'll end up doing just 4 cards today, but you'll have all the cutting done for the other sets of cards. So here I'm taking the owl, the big owl from the Owl Love You stamp set, and I'm going to use my Misty and just stamp it directly. It's really nice to use a Misty, especially with bigger images, because you can just pick it up, and if you don't get it all inked well, you can redo it. And I use the rub and erase eraser to kind of season the stamp, because I haven't used this owl before, and because I'm going to color it in either with markers or shimmer brush, I haven't decided which I wanted to do yet. I'm using the intense black because it's less likely to bleed when I add the markering or the shimmer brush to it. And as you can see, there's just a few pieces of the wings that didn't get inked well, and so you just re-ink up your stamp and then you close the door and it just goes right back over it, which I absolutely love with a stamp positioner. So then I'm taking more of the white scraps that I had around, and I'm kind of just tearing a scalloped edge. It's not truly scalloped, but it just has a bumpy edge because I'm going to put some cloud effects behind our owl here. And by the time I got to card number 3 or 4, which I didn't do on screen, I was realizing that you really need to be careful to not go underneath the edge of your cardstock from that torn edge, and you really want to kind of, for blendering purposes, just good practices, which I'm out of practice, so I messed up a little bit on. Make sure that you put your freshly inked brush onto either the mat behind the cardstock or on the paper that you're doing the clouds out of, so that you don't get a really intense mark of blue, in this case, on your card base. And this is not precision work. I have a friend, Mary Beth, that can do amazing blendering with all sorts of inks. I mean, the distress oxides lend themselves better to blending, and I'm just using the regular dye inks, but she just is a masterful blender. But it's a cloud scene, and they can be dynamic as far as light blue, dark blue, add some yellow in there for sun poking through, so just have some fun with it. So the first card that I'm doing, I am going to use the shimmer brushes, and I just put some rubbing alcohol on my mat here, and it's just to kind of dilute the intensity of the shimmer brush so that it's not so dark on the face and on the chest of the owl. And I remembered later, and I will show you how I did that, instead of diluting it with rubbing alcohol, I'll actually use the clear shimmer brush almost as a blender pen, and I'll show you how I do that later. So this is the only piece of paper that you end up cutting for the first card. It's just this one little 1/4" strip that goes along the bottom of the card. And I just had some fun coloring this in. This is Desert Rose shimmer brush that's on the wing, and I think I used a charcoal. I don't remember for sure which color I used for the rest of the feathers on the wings, but just had some fun. And shimmer brushes and alcohol markers will bleed through to the back, so to cover that, I'm just grabbing some of the scraps again from the Candid Moments papers and just gonna cover up where it bled through, and it'll make for a nice little interest on the inside of my note card. And you can choose to do whatever you want as far as what pattern on the inside. I'm literally just using up the scraps. So then I went back, and for my second card, because I thought I would do a different example of the sky, and on the second sky I thought I would do more of a sunset or a sunrise scene with the owl. So again, I have the original scallop edge, kind of my cloud mask that I'm using. And if you saw, you can use both the front and the back, and it's going to give different looks of when it goes up and goes down, and it just makes it look more, I don't know, natural or not repeated. So then here I'm taking, the next color is Papaya, and putting it next, and then I'll grab some of the peach, and I'll actually blend some of the peach on top of the papaya, and so you kind of are getting that, I don't know if it's truly an ombre effect coming down, but you're going from the blue to the papaya to the peach, and then we'll end with the Sundance at the bottom, kind of the brightness of the sun at the bottom here. And I'm just cleaning my brush off a little bit before going into the next colors. And this is, you can see kind of in that lower right corner that I'm a little out of practice of using a blender brush because I went right on my base project instead of starting off my project and going back onto it. And this is where I had mentioned that I'm taking the shimmer brush that's clear, and I just dropped a few dots of the Bluebell shimmer brush on the top of my mat, and I'm just picking up some of that color with the end of my clear shimmer brush. And the more of the Bluebell that I pick up with the shimmer brush, the darker the blue is going to be. And this owl is going to be all like grays and blues, and I'm really thrilled with how this turned out. It was kind of a nice relaxing time to just color a little bit. And you can see where in my blendering that I went ahead and just blended right over top of my image because I knew I was going to color it in. So if that bothers you that there's shades on his wings from the background, then you might want to use markers instead of shimmer brush because they'll be a little more opaque and you won't be able to see through them. For me, I kind of like that you see it. It almost looks like a reflection of the sky right on his feathers, like you would see it in nature. So here again, this is how I'm camouflaging the coloring going through. And my last step on this card is to just go ahead and put that one strip along the bottom. I really like I said, how this card turned out, and I ended up doing the other two from this set that are also in the, I'll call it the sunset colors. So here's another video you may be interested in. If you haven't subscribed to my channel and you see the word subscribe in red, go ahead and click that so you don't miss anything. And I will do the other two cards that we cut out for this kit next Friday. Have a great week.